Okay, I think we're ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Feel good about this?
I do.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. This is Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons, joined today by the newest president of the University of Southern Indiana, Steve Bridges. Welcome to Inside Look.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it very much.
This is kind of a first for me and for you. I've never interviewed a university president. You've never been one, although you've been on the way up for many years out at USI. So I'm glad you're taking a chance on this. We'll learn together, right?
Absolutely, no problem.
Now, you basically grew up with the University of Southern Indiana, didn't you? I mean, and you're the first alum to be the president of the place. That's got to be a great feeling in a way.
It is a great feeling, and yeah, I just ticked over 36 years as an employee, and then I also was a student for 2 years as well.
And you started right when it became the University of Southern Indiana in 1985, I'm assuming, or right around then?
Actually, I started in 86, so
okay.
A little bit afterwards.
So they were
still the momentum was building.
So you made it through in 3 years then. See, I'm terrible at math. That's why I do Inside Look. But I saw you graduated in 89, so I just assumed. But
yeah, so we didn't have commencement in December, and I actually am a December of 88 graduate because we only did commencement once a year.
Right.
They rolled me into 1989. So I was working there and walking across the stage in the May 1989 timeframe.
Okay, and you studied accounting and the money side of things, correct?
I did, yeah. I was an accountant, started as a staff accountant, and I got my MBA later, before we even had online MBAs. So
from USI, so a
yes.
double alum. That's got to be worth something. A better parking space, maybe, or anything, right?
Maybe a free cup of coffee, right?
Well, they have to know you down where you would do that. So how does a university president happen? In other words, there's not an election, not a campaign, at least not that I've ever seen. So do you throw your hat in the ring, so to speak? Does somebody tap you on the shoulder, or how does that happen?
Yeah, so maybe I should step back to the interim part.
That would be good, yeah.
So on the interim part, Dr. Rashawn had told me that he was applying for a job, and I felt like, knowing Dr. Rashawn, his personality, there was a pretty good chance he might get this job.
Uh-huh.
So I thought about it, and as a senior member of the cabinet, I thought maybe I should be the interim. And so he came in and told me that, and I said, well, I have a plan. He said, I have a plan as well. And so then he came in a little later and said, I've accepted the position. I said, great. He said, I think you should be the interim. I said, that was my plan. So the board voted me interim.
Okay, and so there's a board involved, obviously, that has to make the ultimate decision.
Yes, the board of trustees.
You kind of worked it out internally, and clearly you were familiar with the operation, so it made sense, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then from there, my goal was originally thinking I would be there for the 5th president of the university. But about a month into it, I started thinking, my skill set might be able to work well in this time.
Mm-hmm.
Been a traditionalist, and most of our presidents came up through the academic side.
Yeah.
But new day, new time. And so I told the board I actually had to apply and went through an interview process, a Zoom, then an in-person interview, and there were about 100 applicants. So across the nation, some were already presidents, some were provosts, and so it was, definitely not an automatic.
Yeah.
But as I told the board, I'd been interviewing myself for 5 years. 5 months, because as an alum, I wanted the best for the university. So if it wasn't me and I didn't feel like I could do that job to the level it needed to during the interim, I wouldn't have applied.
Right. Well, you must feel a tremendous sense of ownership of the university because it's been such a huge part of your life, 36 plus years, and you've seen it from as a student, as a consumer, so to speak, also behind the scenes, the money, the whole operation. So what do you see for it then under your guidance and leadership? Where would you like to take it? Because each president has had a certain thing they wanted to do. And I'm sure you've given that some thought. So where do you see it going?
Yes. So I'm going to start with the picture, which will give you an idea. On my desk, each day I look at this picture. It's Dr. Rice handing me my diploma.
The first president of USI, ISUE back before that, yes.
And I worked with him. And so, a lot of the retirees are very influential to me. You mentioned when I came, there were so many people that were founders of the university. So for me, it's history driven and forward thinking. Getting back into touch with this area and the business community heavily. Dr. Rashawn was great. He did a lot of things with the national presence, but my focus is here on this region It's on this business community that founded us. It's on the region. On the Indiana Chamber. So I'm really focusing on Indiana, the region, retention, and recruitment. And those are my big three things.
Okay. And when you focus on that, does that involve certain areas of study that will then be offered? Like I know engineering was added many years ago for that very reason, to develop talent here and hopefully keep it here. So is there another, thing that needs to be added to the curriculum, or how do you, what do you do in that regard?
Sure. So I'm definitely walking the talk of the past. I'm talking to a lot of the business leaders, and I'm asking them what they need. That's how we started, and that's how we were successful. What is it we need? What demands do you have now that we didn't have? So I've been doing a lot of that. So there'll definitely be some corporate training type activities. There may be micro credentials, which is new to today. What could we do to help your workforce? And I keep talking to folks about skilling ahead, not skilling up. Mm-hmm. So if we know we want businesses in this community, let's develop those skills now, ready day one. Because when you skill up, that means you've been behind.
Right. And then you've got to play catch up and hopefully still get those jobs when the industry may have gone elsewhere, something like that. The university has really grown. I mean, it's unbelievable. I was an adjunct instructor at USI from about 2003 to 2019, I suppose, so about 15, 16 years. And every year I went back, I only did it fall semester, and every year there was a new building. It was just like one would grow up, then another, that maybe not literally, but it was almost unrecognizable from the first day I walked in to, 15, 16 years later. That has to be exciting. I mean, it gives you energy to it's a growing, living, expanding kind of operation. How many students right now? Isn't it around 10, 11, 12,000, somewhere in that neighborhood?
So it's about 9,200 with our high school agreement students and about 7,000 just grad students.
Right.
So looking to build that back up, but it's still a nice sized campus.
And it is a almost sprawling campus. I think that would be accurate to say because it covers so much ground out there. You've got a master plan, where it's being built up, so you have the quad, and it's a beautiful campus, and it just seems to get nicer and bigger each year. What's the other thing that really excites you when you go around the I always call that the rotary, but you know what I mean, the roundabout. When you come in each day, what gets your heart rate up and what gets you excited about coming to work?
Yeah, so the beauty that meets me is one thing. And, we didn't always have that front door to campus. We were straight onto the highway.
Right. So the flashing yellow light,
yes.
Turn left at your own peril, right?
Yes, it was. I was rear-ended there in the early parts of my career. So when I pull on the campus, the beauty, the buildings, we're in the middle of renovating the health professions building, and just knowing the lives we're changing, it's a big deal to me when I pull onto there. And I often think about the people that created that campus, and I'm standing on their shoulders without a doubt.
Yeah, when you talk about that campus, it's basically its own city. I mean, you have just about everything. You have security out there. Of course, you have food service. You have housing, and then the academic buildings and everything. How many people does that touch? Like, how many employees are at USI, and then that goes back into the community?
Sure. Yeah, at one time we have less students than we do now because some of them are working off campus. But at our high point, 2,000. So I'd say now we're somewhere in the 1,400 with counting student workers.
So you're running a big operation, probably the biggest, fastest growing of the universities in the state. Is that still correct? I mean,
we've leveled some, but we're still a solid contributor on that.
Sure.
And it is a small city. You're so right. And it's been a long time since we talked about it, but we did talk about it once back in maybe 92, 93. Your mother worked part-time in our office.
She did. Wow.
She did. She helped us with student loans. Paula, right?
Oh, right. Yes. I forgot about
she my worked mom, for a short span.
After my dad passed away, my mom remarried, and she married the cross-country coach at USI, Bill Stegemuller. And that opened our eyes to the whole, kind of the inside look at USI, and in particular cross-country, which was a whole animal of its own. But yeah, I had forgotten that she had worked out there for a period of time.
Yeah, so. She was a great help, pleasant person, and I knew Bill Stegemuller well, and he would be one of my characters in life.
Yes, he was a character in anybody's life, and I wish he were here at some point to do a podcast with him, although it might last 4 or 5 hours. He couldn't really get to a point quickly. He told great wandering stories at times. So you met a lot of characters, you met a lot of people. at USI. Who stands out? Like, who do you look back at and say, boy, that person was a good example, or I need to do kind of like that?
Mm-hmm. Well, our placement director, Marilyn Schmidt, identified me as a potential employee back then. Mm-hmm. So she changed my life, to be honest with you.
Yeah, what were your prospects? Had you not stayed with the university in an accounting capacity, what were you going to just go out and be a certified public accountant or work in an agency like that, or what was your plan?
So I came from a self-employed farming family, and my father never wanted me to farm. And so, I learned a lot that benefits were important. Mm-hmm. People that do not think FICA contributions by your employer are a benefit have never been self-employed, because you pay both the employer and the employee.
Right.
So I looked for stability. So I was looking at government. I was looking at hospitals. And I actually, somewhere in the middle there, was offered a job when I'd been identified as a potential employee. Marilyn had said, you might want to consider applying here. Your answers in this interview that I've done with you resonate with what we do here. So I turned a job down.
You turned the job down the first time?
Waiting for the opportunity to interview. So Marilyn's a big deal for me. But her husband, I found out later, was our assistant vice president for finance and administration, later our VP. So I had a good in. I didn't know it. So Richard Schmidt, big impact. Michael Whipple hired me, big impact. Byron Wright, first CFO. Dr. Rice, all the presidents in their own way. Dr. Hoop started the engineering program you referenced.
Right.
Linda Bennett hired me in the CFO role. What a great community person, wicked smart, big fan of hers. Dr. Rashawn, never met a stranger, taught me a lot of things I didn't know. So all those people really resonate, and so many retirees, I don't want to name them, but you have a unique opportunity at USI when you're in my spot to see people that founded and cared about the institution. And that has set my whole way of thinking.
Yeah, so it's exciting. You've got a commencement coming up here. We're recording this at the end of April, so this may not run before commencement happens. Have you been fitted for the president's suit and all that? Do you get one of those too, with the the robes and the chains and the all that?
Yes, there's a
lot
of
regalia. That's what it's
regalia
called.
Or bling, if
right.
you want to think of it in some cases. But I do have that. I'm using the one we've been using, and I did that in December when we had our December commencement. But this one will be a full day, of 2 days, 5 commencements. And I love the way we do it. When you talk about driving onto campus, how I feel, that day, it reminds me why we do what we do every day when I watch students walk across that stage. And I promise never to count the number of commencements I'm doing, and so I haven't. But it's a special day to watch those families and to be a part of it and to see the culmination. So I'm looking forward to that. And being an alum, it really makes it even more special to stand in front of fellow graduates, soon to be alumni as well.
Yeah, that is great. Well, I'm so glad you had time for us here on Inside Look. Anything else you want to tell me about USI, your presidency, where you hope to take it? Anything like that?
I think aside from the 3 things that I really want to focus on, I want people to think about USI as their first choice, whether it be the students or whether it's the business community who looks at us and says, we have a potential problem, we're looking for a solution. We're not a Research One institution, but we are an applied research institution, so we can be a real factor in helping the community. And since we were founded by the community, that's super important to me.
And I think the community really feels that ownership. I mean, clearly you look at the names on the buildings, it's a lot of community people that have made it possible. I think one thing about USI, I used to call it kind of a hidden gem because it used to be way out in the country. Not so much anymore. The houses are catching up with it, and it's much more visible now than maybe it was 20, 30 years ago. So that's a plus too. Any thought of branching, like having another branch campus of that one then somewhere else close by?
We've taught in different communities and locations, not really a branch, but
right.
spread our knowledge base and our brand a little that way. I think that would make more sense if we were just going to community teaching in maybe already established areas. But that's a possibility. A whole unique branch, I don't think right now is the time for that.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking time for us here on Inside Look. Steve Bridge, everybody always hits the microphone when they shake my hand. We got to work the choreography out better. Steve Bridges,
thank you.
5th and newest president of the University of Southern Indiana. You can listen to all of our podcasts wherever you get your podcast, or you can watch on our 14 News YouTube channel. For Inside Look, I'm Jeff Lyons.